Hello, this is Ace Hawk, and today we're going to be playing Ultimate General Civil War on Legendary difficulty with the Union. Now before we get started, I'll just say that I am going to do a quick Q&A video right after this video that'll explain some of the decisions I'm making here, why I'm choosing to build my general the way that I am. I figured there's going to be some other questions about the campaign that I also want to answer, but for this video, let's just get stuck in. So as you can see, we're playing on Legendary General, which is the hardest difficulty. The main difference between Legendary and Major General is that the enemy is going to be a lot more aggressive, they're going to have a lot better weapons, and they're going to be a lot more, they're going to have a lot better stats, the units. So to get started, I'm going to make actually a quick save, and I'm going to be testing the hypothesis here that if you make a save and then load it, you actually get bigger units on this first mission. Now that's actually going to be true, but I'm going to be able to show it here in the video. So this opening part of the battle, we end up not walking down this road like the game wants you to, but we walk around to avoid his skirmishers on the ridge. This part is pretty slow as you just kind of walk around and avoid the enemy, so I'm actually going to be speeding it up here in just a little bit so that it's a little bit, easier to watch. And then we're going to see our units come in kind of in that Y section up here, and we're going to see that they're going to be a lot smaller, or rather, we're going to see they're going to be about 600 each. We're then going to load that save that we just made and do this little song and dance one more time. I actually fast forwarded here because I want to show just a quick interaction here. These two units are going to engage, and as you can see on Legendary difficulty, he's immediately just kind of charged right in there. That's pretty typical if the units sense that they have a local superiority, they're usually going to charge in. In fact, sometimes they don't even have superiority, they're going to charge in. So a lot of our tactics are going to revolve around how we deal with his units charging in directly at us. Good way to deal with that is simply using the F key. I know that these skirmishers, so I'll interrupt myself here really quick. These skirmishers automatically sort of like back up after they shoot, but for our infantry, we're going to hit the F key, we're going to back up, and that's usually going to stop him depending on if he's getting fire in. So as you can see, each of these units has about 600, 635, and 639 on Loomis and our other guy. So now I'm going to load this, and I'm going to fast forward through it again so we don't have to watch this, but you're going to see as those units come in, they're going to have about 200 extra guys, which is going to be very helpful, especially in this early mission. And also considering those are the two units, or two of the four units rather, that we're actually going to keep throughout this mission. So here they come. They're going to come in. I'm going to slow the video back down to normal speed, and sure enough, look at that. Basically 200 extra guys per unit. That's going to help us a little bit coming up here, as we're going to do what might be considered an exploit, but this isn't one of my favorite missions to play in the game, so we're going to go ahead and use a tactic. Some people may not like it, but it's Legendary difficulty. You kind of have to use every advantage you can. Generally speaking, throughout this campaign, and I'm going to talk more about this in the Q&A video, but we're not going to use detached skirmishers on our line infantry. If you're familiar with this game, that's a pretty common tactic at this skill level. That's not because they're not good. Detached skirmishers from your line infantry are actually really strong. They do deal good damage. They take less damage from the enemy. We're going to not use them very often because, just to make it a little bit more of a challenge. We are, however, going to use the button today to help us do this exploit. Essentially, the way this mission works is we're going to come up here to this town, and we need to cross that bridge that you can see kind of there in the upper right. That bridge is really tough because they have enemies right behind it, and we don't want to lose too many men on this early phase of the battle because we have a second phase of the battle coming right after that's a little bit hairy, and we need to be able to use these troops that we have on screen to hold the town until our reinforcements arrive. So we're going to use a tactic. We're going to actually cross the river a little bit farther up using that detached skirmisher mode, but that's not to detach the skirmishers to fight. That's just to get the unit across the river without having to use the bridge. So as you can see here, his skirmishers are charging in once again, and we're going to use a tactic that we're going to use pretty much throughout this campaign, and that is we're going to make a lot of right angles. So as you can see here, I've got two units, and they're kind of forming a triangle of death. So as our unit is, engaging him, Our unit is in cover, kind of in that house there, so he's going to actually win that engagement already. But our unit is then going to come in from his flank. Now he's going to retreat, and we're going to run into a funny problem here that happens pretty often in this game, where the unit thinks they can shoot, they stop to shoot, and in the time they stop to shoot, the unit moves out of range. So we're going to have to deal with that a few times throughout this mission. It's not a big deal here. It would have only been 1 or 2 more kills, but it's a good thing to point out at this point. So I'm using my cavalry up there in the north just to get vision. That's going to help us to see if he's trying to sneak any troops down to that south. But in general, I'm going to try to move all these guys into the woods that kind of surround this bridge, because as soon as we take the bridge, we're going to want to move all of our units into the town on the east side of that bridge, capture that flag, and move on to the next part of the battle. I'm going to use my skirmishers to kind of screen here. I'm going to try to swat his unit away. He's actually going to cross the bridge here, which is a little bit too bad, but you know, that's the fun part of this game. You never quite fight, even if you fought this battles a few times like I have, they never quite work out exactly the same way, because the AI kind of does what it wants sometimes. Yeah, so a little skirmish here, trying to push that guy away. You're going to see me kind of fiddling with the arty this time. I was trying to be a little bit more aggressive with my artillery than I normally am. One of the catches here is I thought initially that I didn't want my artillery to be spotted, because I didn't want to take counter battery fire from his artillery, which you see over there across the river. What I should have done is you can actually use your general, which you can see right there in the star, as sort of an artillery bait if you put him in front and in the open. Generals actually take very little damage from artillery. So, especially at this early stage in the game when he has pretty low battery counts and he's using 6-pounders probably, you can really use your you can use your general to your advantage, as he doesn't actually count against your kill count. Since the goal of this campaign really is not just to win, not just to get the W and move on, but also to kill as many of his enemies and to take as few losses from our troops as possible. That's going to be a tactic we're going to use more frequently in this campaign. It's one I should have used more often here, but that's how you fight these battles. That's what happens when you review these in tape. You kind of realize where you've missed out. So as you can see, I'm kind of like fiddling with my arty here. This wasn't actually the best move. I think in future I should just get that 3-inch, plop down, start shooting at his artillery, and get that 6-inch, or rather 6-pounder, right about where it is now to start hitting his troops across the water. None of these are really imperative. I'm just trying to run up the kill count while I wait for my 2 800 line infantry to get up to the point where they can cross the river. And it's important here in this stage of the battle not to rush. As you can see, we've got plenty of time. This is a mission that really can catch you off guard if you're trying to hurry, because one of the weird mechanics in this game is once we move to phase 2, even though it's implied that some time has passed, your units will start at the same condition they ended this phase of the battle in. So if I were using my troops kind of running around, burning all their condition, it would mean that they're going to start the next phase of the battle, which is the far harder phase, with really low condition. And at least initially, we're going to need to use that condition to our advantage, especially to move away and to maneuver our troops into a good position. So here you can see I'm taking some fire on my artillery. I'm moving it back, trying to find a spot where it's not hidden or not visible to the enemy. Again, probably should have just been using the general, but what can you do? These 2 artillery units are the other 2 that you're going to keep, so it's not quite as big of a deal if you lose 1 or 2, but you do want to keep those 2 guys safe, and you do want to get them some experience. Now how this, this is a huge gift. This guy is going to walk right in front of all of my troops, and then right in front of my cannon, right in front of my line infantry, right in front of my skirmishers. So this is a gift. AI doesn't always give these to you, but when they do, you really have to capitalize on them. So now he's going to charge after my skirmisher unit, which can easily evade him. He's going to go deeper and deeper, and we're going to turn into this nice right angle that we like to set up. Now that unit's doing another little bug that the AI likes to do where it kind of turns just enough to try to fire on him and then goes to fire, and then since the unit is charging, he's already out of his arc of fire. So what you can do there is you see what I did. I just turned off his ability to fire, moved him into the proper position, and then turned his fire mode back on so that way he could get some flanking fire on him and stop that charge. Now I've sped up some of this footage here as it's just me kind of fiddling around trying to get the unit across the water. I'm making this trick look much harder than it is. It is a little bit finicky, but if you do a little bit of practice, you can actually do it a little bit faster than I'm doing here. Basically, all that we're doing is we're using the Detached Skirmisher button to force the game to remake the unit, which places its location sort of inside that impassable terrain, which is the river. Once it does that, the game sort of doesn't know where to put your unit, and therefore allows you to actually walk to the right side of the river, even though the unit was originally on the left. And this way we can get across this river without having to run right into its fortifications. So I'm just sending that first unit, which I was able to get across, into the woods so that he's not getting attacked by that arty, and then pretty soon here I'll get this second unit going and we can get this battle going. So we finally got that unit across. It's now coming. I'm going to have my other unit come up and join him, and we're going to move these two units south, have them flank the troops that are guarding the river crossing, and then have all of our units join across the river. The goal here is not to take too many casualties in these two units which have crossed, as again, these are the units which we're going to have next, or rather permanently in the campaign, so the less casualties they take, the better. Then I'm just going to press that button again to teleport the last of the guys across, and boom, we did it. Only took first try, right? Only took a few tries, but and I'm trying to set up here one dangerous part of having these two troops across is they're completely unsupported. So, if he has multiple units of infantry that decide, I want to charge these guys down, what I try to do is have my units close enough that they can support each other, but spread out enough that if one of them gets charged, the other can turn and fire into the charging unit's flanks. If the two units are really close, kind of forming a line, it's hard for them to spread out and fire into the flank. So at this distance, you can see that if one of them gets charged, I can tell one that's being charged to start falling back while the other can turn and support and fire into the flanks. That's really the goal here. If you fire into the flanks of the enemy that's charging, it really zaps their morale, and that morale will prevent them from continuing to charge. We really want to avoid melee. There's ways to build for melee in this game. I'm not going to do it. Melee is really, really tricky to pull off in this game well. You're usually trading kind of one for one. Even if you're getting into melee with troops that are routing, you're still losing at your own troops. It also really exhausts your troops, so their condition runs down to 0. When their condition is 0, they stop meleeing. Their ability to melee goes down. Their ability to retreat out of the battle goes down. There's also this weird mechanic where when you're in melee, it's really easy to take flanking fire, which means your troops are then going to rout. It's very hard to pull off well. I'm sure there are others who play this game who are better at it than me, but as our overall goal, especially on this campaign, is going to be to avoid melee altogether. We're going to do almost none of it, and the AI is going to constantly try to get into melee, and we're going to be trying to avoid it. So here I am. I'm going to take these troops, move them across. We're going to try to set it up so that the unit of 600 there is going to take the majority of the hits. At least that was the intention. Sometimes, I had other ideas, but that unit doesn't stay with us, again, like I've mentioned, so we want him to be taking enemy fire while our units that we keep are dealing out the damage. He's going to charge here. This is really unfortunate. Wasn't quite able to get him to stop this charge, and he gets into melee, which is too bad, which is, again, what we're trying to avoid. It's hard to avoid when you're on these river crossings because, you know, where you're supposed to back up towards. But again, this is okay. This is the unit we're not particularly concerned about. Again, we don't want to. We want him to take as few casualties as possible. We want to, you know, use him to his best of his ability, but it's not a unit we're gonna restart the mission for. See, this is where it gets really hairy. He starts charging in the second unit, and you're going to see a problem here where I'm trying to fire on this unit that's charging, but the units that are retreating are actually blocking me. So I'm going to turn off my fire mode so that these guys don't waste their shot on the retreating units. I'll probably leave it on a little bit too long, and then, okay, try it again. Nope, still blocked. So I'm going to turn it off again. Again, I'm just afraid they're going to shoot on the retreating units and then not have a shot when these guys are finally available. And see here, I think the shot is clear, but I still have them turned off. Kind of waste some valuable time here, but my artillery's right there. You know, it's not a total tragedy just yet. My unit's going to rout, but so is his. So, hey, it wasn't pretty. Could have been done a little bit more elegant, but got the job done. We're now across the river. I've got one unit into the town, which has good cover. We're about to move a second one in as soon as those retreating units get out of the way. And I'm kind of just using my cavalry here to harass his artillery. The enemy loves to target their artillery on the closest unit. So if your cavalry coming really close from an angle, they'll start turning those guns towards the enemy. As you can see them doing right here. That wastes their time. You know, when they're turning, they're not aiming the gun, they're not doing anything productive. And then you can just run away before they take the shot. And this is a good way to really, I'm looking for the right word here. Yeah, just really make the enemy artillery less effective, is I guess what I'm trying to say. So, the same infantry that was retreating 5 seconds ago is now charging in again. Welcome to Legendary difficulty. We're going to use the old F tactic, trying to back up, trying to get him to stop the charge. It's not effective here, but we're going to give it one more try, and luckily this time it works. We click F, we back up, we click on him, and he stops charging. So that was lucky. It was a good time too, as our second unit is able to come in there, support him, and shoot him in the flank and make him start routing. You can see why artillery is so dangerous. I mean, these are really early guns. These are only 6-pounders, I believe, and this is a pretty low battery size, and it's only a 1-star, and yet my unit, which is in the town, which has the highest cover you can get, still took a good 50 casualties there just from being so close. So a lot of times in this campaign, you're going to see that the initial goal of any mission is just to eliminate the enemy artillery, because, man, it doesn't matter how good you are at this game, enemy artillery can really rip your units apart if you're not careful. So we're trying to focus them down, not get too close so that we don't take too much fire. He's shooting round shot. Our cavalry's getting a little bit flanked there, which is too bad. I didn't see our skirmishers out the flank. You know, I'm just trying to degrade, and this is actually great. The enemy starts a charge after my cavalry. That's always a positive, as cavalry is one of the few units that can actually run out of the way of this charging infantry. So if he wants to follow, you know, my cavalry across the map, all the better. You know, let's get him completely out of position. Let's get him out of the town. Let's take advantage of this. So finally we can move forward. We can take this flag. There's no real reason to cross after that second set of buildings. I don't know why I initially said it that way. All we need to do here is capture this flag, take as few casualties as possible, and try to save our conditions so that we're able to also effectively fight the next day. You can see I'm kind of leaving that unit of 400 over there on the left completely out of the battle. He took some morale hits, but more importantly, he took a lot of condition hit from getting in 2 melees in a row, and so I'm going to try to let him recover so that when the next phase of the battle starts, he's able to contribute, because he's actually going to be kind of the linchpin of our defense of the town. So here with the cavalry, I'm just trying to keep this unit of infantry busy so that my infantry can readjust. You can see they took some flanking fire there, but luckily they're in the town, so the actual damage was pretty low. now that he's engaged that infantry, I can come up behind him with his cavalry and shoot him in the back. That should, zap his morale. He decided to charge across the bridge into my skirmishers, which is great. I'm super happy about that. I can degrade him a little bit there. And you can see all we're trying to do, we're just trying to bring that timer down. It's at about 11 right now. And once it reaches 0, we'll be able to move on to the next day. And the next day is really where this battle is won or lost. The next phase of the battle, you essentially have all these troops here, and you need to defend the town against a pretty big wave of enemies. The saving grace is that you have a group of reinforcements that come, and we're going to have those reinforcements join the battle and immediately sprint to the town, and then they're going to actually take over and do a majority of the fighting and dying. We want, again, to say it for the 20th time, we want these 2 units in the town right now to take as few casualties as possible, as they're going to be the ones who we actually get to keep after this battle. And here we go, the timer is about 2, getting pretty close. And there we go, we can move on to the next phase of the battle. Now this is the phase where I think a lot of people struggle because they take a lot of damage on the first day. I'm going to arrange my troops like this. They're going to have a lot of guys that come from the sort of southeast there. And they're going to run into my unit of 400 that I've been kind of resting, that I'm okay with taking damage on. I'm going to try to use him to attract the enemy attention where my units kind of take up the middle. And then I'm going to take actually all of my skirmisher units up to the northern part of the town. And I'm going to use those to distract, flank, and just kind of out-micro the enemy as they try to move on this position. And that will kind of make it my defense. My main infantry holding the middle, my artillery, and my unit of 400 that I'm okay with taking casualties, kind of holding them in the south, and my skirmishers and skirm cav are going to dance around in the north, keep them busy, keep them charging in the wrong direction, and firing those quick reloading 55s into their flanks. It's important to kind of keep your artillery a little bit back, probably farther back than you would in most other missions, as the enemy is going to charge into this town a lot, and the last thing you want is your artillery getting caught in one of those melees, and they move really slowly in the town, so you may not be able to get as many kills as if you were more aggressive with the arty, but the important thing is that your 2 artillery units, which again you're keeping, don't take too much damage, so you don't lose any guns. The way this game works is if you don't necessarily lose any cannons when your artillery units take damage like they have so far, 4 or 5 casualties. But when they cross thresholds of 25, so if you had a unit of 300 and they lost 25 guys, you actually lose the artillery that unit had. So if they had 12 guns, you would start in the next battle with 11. And we want to try to keep as much of the artillery as possible. So artillery is one of the best weapons we have as the Union. It's what's going to help us win a lot of the future battles. So here you can see I'm just dancing around with this cavalry. I'm trying to spot his units, spot his skirmishers, spot his line. And then I'm going to use these skirmishers to take shots in his flanks. He's got these big size units. He's not going to be able to turn fast enough. In fact, he's just going to give up there. I'm going to come in again, fire from the flanks. This is doing morale damage, so he's not going to be able to charge as easy. This is also, of course, just degrading his numbers. And there you see I have that skirm unit kind of like stationed in that house, so he takes good cover. So he's going to charge, and that's going to like root me out of there. But if he had just tried to exchange volleys, he would have lost because he's in the open, and I have these units here. So I'm going to actually store that unit now in the bunker here. That bunker isn't super strong, but it means that I don't have to micro quite as much with that unit. It's still a strong enough position, and the enemy really likes to charge those bunkers, and if he charges that, I've got that second unit of skirmishers kind of hiding in the bushes there. He's going to get flanked. So here's our reinforcements. They've joined the battle. I'm going to actually draw their path out because I want them to stay on the road. I don't want them running through those woods and slowing them down. I want them moving as fast as possible. I'm going to have to unpause there because the unit hadn't quite joined the battle yet. And in fact, he's still not full enough in, or I'm just redrawing the same line. You have to be careful sometimes when you draw these lines, as there are some missions where when units spawn on the edge of the map, if you grab them and draw a line early enough, they'll actually get stuck on the other side of the sort of out of bounds barrier. Now that can actually be to your advantage. I've never figured out exactly how to exploit it, but the way it works is the unit will be stuck sort of on the left side of that yellow line, and he'll move sort of around the map that way. When you save the game and then load that save, however, the unit is properly put back in bounds. So there's some potential for maybe finding a way to get around obstacles or maybe move around an enemy unit. I haven't found a good example of it, but it is a potential exploit if you wanted to use it, or if that helped in maybe missions. There you can see, just like I was saying, these skirms come charging in at our units which are in cover there. It was a little bit unfortunate, the timing there, as my cav was right there, so they took some hits. But you know, that cav is, we did a good job of protecting that cav in the first round, so he can take some hits. So here we see a unit that's charging from halfway around across the map at our unit, which we've stored sort of there in the southeast. He's going to be just fine. We're going to be able to, he's been charging for so long that he actually gives up right when he gets in range. Now we can see his skirmishers are charging, this unit from the north is charging, his cavalry is charging. You know, this is kind of how this mission goes. It's all about, you know, how can you juggle all these guys who are charging. So, you know, we just fall back and then we target them, and then we fall back again if they don't stop charging. That skirm unit actually gets into melee with our line infantry. That's kind of unfortunate, but luckily skirmishers, especially at this low level, aren't necessarily the strongest units. Now, I actually make a mistake here. As you can see, those units, their orders are actually about to run out. The line that I've drawn only goes so far, and I didn't quite catch it. So they're gonna actually sit there for a few seconds and not move, which is just a silly error, but it's only gonna cost us a little bit, a few extra seconds. Not the end of the world. And so as you can see, if you hit those units in the flanks, as they come charging in, they retreat, and then they're out of the battle for a little bit, and it makes this mission just a lot more manageable. We're just letting that unit in the south take all the damage again. He's not coming with us to the next battle, so if he takes some casualties, that's alright. As you can see, they're all focusing on that unit that's stuck in the trenches there, and our other skirm units can come around and hit them in the flanks. You know, take some casualties on them. And there I recognize, oh, they're all just sitting there. I finally get them going again. And here comes the enemy train. I think the thing with the enemy train is it's a little bit scarier than it looks. Initially, when you shoot at it with the cannon, it only does like 1 or 2 damage, but as soon as you get close, you actually hit that train with like canister fire, it does a lot of damage. In fact, you can actually get the artillery train to like have essentially go into morale shock, which you'll actually see here. So the way to play it is to wait till the train gets close. Your units are in pretty good cover, so hopefully he's not doing too much damage to them. And then right when he gets close, I'm going to have both my artillery pieces that I have in the field right now kind of focus him, and after a few hits he's going to be done. He's going to retreat out of the battle. I'm pretty sure you don't get any benefit from actually killing him, so as soon as he starts retreating, you can actually reassign your artillery to start shooting someone else. And so this is how you're kind of seeing what I'm doing here. These 3 units that are coming in, one's going to one's going to fill in sort of the gap in the very south and get some flanking fire on the enemy. And then the other 2 are actually going to take over the spots from our 2 units, which we're taking with us, which, you know, is right there, Loomis and Scales. And so that means that they can kind of sort of fall back. They won't take any more casualties. And that's going to really be a benefit to us moving forward. You know, they've got some good experience here. They've got some kills. They've taken some damage, you know, but we don't want them coming into the next, you know, starting off the next battle where they only have like 200 or 300 or, you know, something like that. We want them as healthy as possible because we're going to be using them a lot. And, you know, manpower and guns are pretty limited here in the early part of the game. So as you can see, the train there is flashing. It's still able to shoot, unfortunately, which I don't think I recognized when I played this, but it's flashing, so one more good hit from either of the RD, and I think it's going to start retreating, and that's really the goal of this section. Just get that train to retreat. That's his only RD unit that really gets that close to the town. His other one sits pretty far outside of town. And when there's no RD, the mission is a lot easier. There it goes. Yep. Cool. So we're actually in really good shape here. Our reinforcements are coming online. His enemies are all kind of lined up there in the south, which is right where we want them. That's where our cannons are. That's where our reinforcements are now. So now our units aren't taking any more casualties. Our general's right there to support. So here comes his skirms, and this is unfortunate. His skirms really do manage to charge in, and so I have to move my infantry back into place to help. And you can see here our unit tries to turn and give his flank to the entire enemy just to shoot at this skirmisher unit which comes charging in, and that's really the danger. When units come charging in, they really mess with the integrity of your line, and then maybe if you don't catch it, your units take flanking fire. Now they're not fighting effectively anymore. So as you can see, the enemies in the north have been pretty well neutralized just by our skirmishers, by hitting them in the flanks and running away from their charge. I'm actually going to move, I think, scales over there just to fire from the town if they get close. And see, now he's charging into our center. He gets into combat with Bordersers again, which is now the third time he's been charged. So they're going to make it through this battle. But now our cavalry is being charged. The charges just never end. I actually counter-charged this time, so I'm like, let's just get this guy off the battlefield. There's only one of two infantry units over here. The thing to note is if you have a unit in front of another unit, like that cav was in front of Loomis there, your friendly unit in the back can't fire. But if they're in melee, if our cavalry unit charges like you did there, you can actually fire into the melee. Now it does do some friendly damage, but I'm actually happy enough to take some friendly fire here as this cav unit isn't coming with us. Like I've said a million times, it's okay to take some friendly damage when they're just ally units. They're not your units you're taking with you in the campaign. So luckily, Zeus survives another charge. We get that guy to back up. And now I'm just going to use these sort of 4 allied units as my main army. I'm going to get my 2 artillery units, which also got gifted as reinforcements, and I'm going to be really aggressive with those. I could have been more aggressive, as it's not a big deal if you take losses from those. And I guess I should explain here the reason why I'm so cavalier with my allied units. And it's because the way this game handles allied units, you're going to get them in a few battles, especially these early battles, and it's tempting to try to treat them like your own, but you're really incentivized not to. When your allied units survive the battle, go home, let's say they take 0 casualties, that's actually kind of a bad thing for you. You do not get any of the weapons or any of the XP that your allied units take. However, if your allied units fall in battle, you do recuperate some of those materials. So I'm going to be really aggressive here with my allied units, and look, my allied unit there is actually taking flanking fire. I didn't see that skirmisher unit coming in. I'm not going to try to throw them away intentionally. I'm just going to be very aggressive with them, because ultimately if they take casualties, as long as they're not taking morale shocks and not fighting effectively, I actually get those weapons. So it's kind of a strange way this game incentivizes you to be so aggressive, and with your own allied troops. Again, I'm not talking about your units that you take with you, but that is unfortunately the way the game is played. This is fixed in some of the mods. I think that's how it works in the UI mod, and I know that's how it works in the JMP mod. You actually get to keep some percentage, I think a higher percentage, of the allied units which survive. You get to keep some of their weapons. That gives you a nice incentive, not to just squander them. Yeah. If you wanted to be really aggressive with this tactic, you could, at the end of a battle, sort of intentionally get your allied units killed. I don't think I'm ever going to get that, min-maxy on this game. to sort of quote a better YouTuber than I, my allied units, they're going to fight. I'm not going to throw them away, but they are going to fight. And there you see, I'm just trying to keep, Walton and Loomis safe. They're the units that we keep, so the less casualties on them, the better. And they're actually the only casualties I'm going to count for this battle. These battles give you the statistics of all the units that you've lost, and again, talking about that fact that you actually want to, in some ways, lose your allied troops means that for the purposes of counting our kills to death, which I'm going to touch on in the other video, I'm only counting the units that we're taking with us, which again, in this case, is Loomis, Walton, Scales, and Woods. So the 2 artillery units and those 2 infantry that I've got sort of back in the town. So the less damage you can take on them, the better. It's really going to supercharge our early game. The fact that these guys are going to come out of this battle with some experience, minimal casualties. It's going to make the next missions a lot easier, which is going to make Bull Run a lot easier. We're going to have a unit with good weapons, good experience. We're going to have more troops in the battlefield, which means that we can collect more weapons from the enemy as they scale to us. It means we're going to get more, enemies, and their manpower pool is going to grow less fast. It's all kind of like, the way this game works is you sort of like, you win, and then you try to win harder, So at this point of the battle, it's pretty much over. There's no way the enemy is going to beat me at this point, so I'm just trying to keep my main unit safe and get as many enemies as I can. We're actually going to get them all this battle, which is actually fairly easy to do. There's a timer up there which you can see is counting down to 40, but even when it reaches 0, as long as you have the town, the battle doesn't end. You actually have a lot more time, so you can sort of take your time mopping up the enemy here. If these were all my units, I'd try to be a lot more careful. I'd probably keep them in the town and probably try to use some other tactics, but again, I'm going to be aggressive with these guys because if they fall in battle, I get their weapons. There we see again, his skirmishers are charged again. Luckily this time they finally fall, but man. Enemy skirmishers on legendary difficulty. And there goes another unit. Those skirmishers, they're one of the tougher units to deal with. Enemy just loves to charge them into battle. They're quick, they're quicker than line infantry. What can you say? Got to be careful for those enemy skirmishers, especially here in these early battles when your troops aren't quite as fast or as nimble as they will be later. So yeah, at this point, the battle is fairly academic, as they say. We're just sort of mopping up the enemy, sort of racking up the kills here. And there goes another unit in the north. Yeah, so I'm gonna fast forward this footage here pretty soon, and I think that's just because at this point there isn't a whole lot of interesting things going on. We're just kind of slowly pushing them into the corner of the map. His units are really fragile now, so you see just one or two more volleys and they tend to fall. He decides to charge again, despite the fact that he was retreating only a few seconds earlier. But luckily I have another unit there to support, so never really in danger, just kind of fall back, let the enemy, let our friendly unit shoot him in the side, and he's going to retreat again. All right, that wraps up that battle. I think it went pretty well. So you can see here on the right, I've put in, they've totaled up the number of kills they've had minus the deaths from my units, with a final kill to death ratio of a little over 15. Here are the 4 units that we're taking with us. So you can see how many kills they got, how many deaths. This is actually one of the higher death counts we're going to have on either of these units for a few battles, but it's the first mission. They've got no stars. They've got pretty basic equipment. Just showing here the equipment I've captured. We're going to use pretty much all of these weapons. I mean, 55s in particular, we're going to use this for our cav, stuff like that. But yeah, that pretty much sums it up. So here's the battle reward screen. That pretty much wraps it up for this battle. So I just want to thank everyone for watching. And I will see you next time.